Like any other world-class city, Seoul, South Korea is a city of cities, meaning that it is a collection of neighborhoods that almost feel like an independent entity with their own feeling and atmosphere and things to do and charm that can make it really overwhelming to know which neighborhood to explore, where to spend your time, where you want to stay, which one resonates with you. So don't worry, I will give my ultimate Seoul neighborhood guide breaking down 7 different neighborhoods and why you should visit them, what you should do, and what they all feel like. So let's get started with neighborhood number 1, Myeong-dong. Myeong-dong is a neighborhood that is located pretty much right smack dab in the center of Seoul, and it is a neighborhood that is famous for its shopping, including lots of Korean and international brands, lots of high-end luxury and also some budget options, department stores, cosmetics, which you might be really into if you're going to Korea, and it even has street food and other things for you to take part in. So the main area you need to check out in Myeongdong is going to be the Myeongdong shopping street. This is a pedestrian street that is filled with plenty of those kind of stores I was telling you about, whether they're department, whether they're high-end fashion, whether it's going to be cosmetic stores. I recommend Olive Young. It's like a Korean chain. My wife loves it. She's more into cosmetics than me, but it's a really good store, and they have a big one here on the Myeongdong shopping street. And also at night it turns into a little bit more of an entertainment kind of area slightly, because there is going to be Myeong-dong Night Market, one of the most famous night markets in all of Seoul. I do think that there are better markets you can visit, but it's definitely worth checking out, and it's fun to try many different foods. I really recommend you try hotdog, which is like my favorite Seoul street food. It's a dessert. It's kind of like a donut, kind of, or like a jelly donut, but inside, instead of being filled with jelly, it's filled with like brown sugar that melts, it becomes so delicious, and it's really freaking hot, so be careful, but really amazing.
Day 2 in Seoul, Korea, day 2 of hotdog. Literally my favorite thing ever. It's like an elf veneer and a fried pancake. We'll dance for hotdog.
And this is north of Myeongdong Station, and right in that area, before you cross the street, there's a little hidden recommendation, which is going to be Art Monster. This is actually a chain sort of bar, but it's really beautiful, has a really cool aesthetic, and has a nice little view, and has great beers for you to sample as well. So just a little pro tip there. Now, another cool area you should check out in Myeongdong is going to be south of Myeongdong Station, and it's going to be Cartoon Street, aka Zaemiro, I believe it's called. And this is like an open air sort of like gallery where you can see lots of animation kind of pictures or animated style images and cartoons that are like implemented as far as being like murals, or even some entire buildings are decorated this way. So it's a really cool little collection of streets that actually leads to another thing that is kind of in Myeongdong. I would include it because you can walk there from here, which is to climb Namsan Mountain. Now this is really easily accessible from Myeongdong. You just need to go through Cartoon Street and then keep on walking up the beautiful Namsan Mountain to reach Seoul Tower. The views along the way are amazing. It's not too difficult, but just take your time and you'll get some of the best views of Seoul. And you can reach Seoul Tower, which is an iconic tower of the entire city. But if you don't feel like climbing, just take the Namsan cable car up to the top, get your views. It's a fun experience to do as well, and it's something you should definitely consider including for your itinerary or things you do while visiting Myeongdong. Now let's move on to neighborhood number 2, Insadong. Insadong is one of my absolute favorite neighborhoods in Seoul, spoiler alert, and for me it is like the perfect mixture of like trendy but also traditional, because here you can go to many like kind of antique sort of stores selling traditional Korean goods, but it's also very artsy and creative and crafty, which I'll talk about more later. And it's located in the Jongno district, which I'll talk more about later as well, because the neighborhoods and districts kind of blend together, and I'll clarify that in more detail. So my first recommendation for Insadong is to visit Samsae-gil, I believe it's called. Now this is sort of like a 3-story shopping mall, but it's very different because it is all relating to crafts, and there are 70 small little artisan or boutique kind of stores, some doing traditional crafts, some doing like lessons or more like kind of cutesy kind of things. Then it has an open courtyard, and it's a really cool, interesting kind of like main attraction you need to visit while being in Insadong.
I think. No. On the side, so that's where it opens.
Think so?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll try.
Actually, I don't know.
Let's do it.
There, see?
Yay!
Okay.
Google Translate.
And located right off of Samsae-gil is going to be Insadong Street. Similar to Myeong-dong's shopping street, this is the main pedestrian street in Insadong, and you can walk up and down it. You can find some street food here and there, but it has really cool shops where you can buy some traditional Korean goods, some souvenirs. There's lots of good restaurants. There's a traditional, or many traditional Korean tea houses that you must visit. This perfectly epitomizes that traditional and trendy kind of creative, crafty vibe that I love in Insadong. So interesting. And here's my little pro tip for the neighborhood of Insadong. So the main station in Insadong is Anguk Station, and if you go just a little bit south, there's a little network of these hanok houses. It's like a little hanok village, which if you don't know, we'll talk about more later for some other neighborhoods, but these are like the traditional Korean kind of houses, and there's like a network of this area which you can get lost in, and it has one of my absolute favorite restaurants in all of Seoul called Osegaehyung, which is a traditional Korean restaurant where you go in, take your shoes before you walk in the restaurant, and then you sit down on the floor, and they have an amazing collection of traditional Korean foods, including things like bibimbap, they have sambap, they have kimchi, they have bundae-jjigae, mandu, which are like Korean dumplings filled with kimchi, some of them, and even more. So it's a great restaurant, really delicious, and one of my pro tips for you in Insadong. And on the traditional side, you must visit Jogesa Temple. This is right in Insadong. It's a beautiful Korean Buddhist temple with a massive main hall, a Buddhist statue, and lots of beautiful flowers for you to explore. It really is a beautiful temple, smack dab right in Insadong, that you must check out. And do you remember those hanok villages I was telling you about earlier? So there's an actual hanok village called Insadong, which is like about 6-minute walk away from like the main heart and hub of Insadong. So maybe it's technically a different neighborhood, but it's close enough that you should include it in your visit of Insadong. And this is not necessarily like a typical traditional hanok village, but it has that vibe, it has that aesthetic with the buildings, but there are tons of cafes and trendy restaurants, and it's kind of like a coupley date spot. It can get really busy, but it's definitely worth checking out and exploring. And just another one of those beautiful mixes of traditional Korean culture with the trendy, cutesy kind of stuff that I really enjoy. And lastly, if you're into the traditional culture and you like free things, visit Myeong-dong Palace. Now this is actually a free palace that you can visit right in Insadong, and it might not be as glamorous as some others we'll talk about. I'm teasing you a lot, I know, we'll get to that. But anyway, it's free to enter, and you can actually see some preserved rooms that were existing during the Joseon dynasty that were still like existing today as they would back then. So it gives you a literal like look into previous daily life that maybe some royalty experienced here in Seoul, which maybe we wouldn't experience because we're not royalty, but it's really cool to see and fun to walk around a free place like this in Insadong. Before I move into my third neighborhood, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Wanderless Woman, my YouTube name, but I'm actually Noah, and I am an avid traveler. I love making travel guides, things to do videos on places like Seoul or Asia, Southeast Asia, and the rest of the world, like altogether. I really want to visit every place and give you the best possible information to have your best experience yourself. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe. If not, no worries. Just keep watching the video, at least do that for me. And let's move on to neighborhood number 3, which is Gangnam. Now Gangnam is actually south of the Han River, and that's literally like the meaning of Gangnam. And it is a famous neighborhood for obvious reasons. I don't even need to make that joke.
Hear that? That's how we are in Gangnam-dong. Oppa Gangnam style.
And it is an upscale, luxury, fancy neighborhood that has some great stuff for us to see and do here. Number 1, of course, to get this off the list, is the statue of Gangnam style. No, I can't do it. A Gangnam style. This statue consists of 2 massive like gold metal hands that are doing the iconic dance move from the iconic song by Psy. And you can even play the music as many times as you'd like. Oh my gosh. I hope you never get sick of this song.
Taking autographs later. What have I done?
Now, number 2 is the Starfield COEX Mall, which coincidentally is right next to the statue of Gangnam style. This is a massive underground shopping center with like, it's very easy to get lost in here too. But the main highlight that everyone wants to see, which I recommend you check out, is the Starfield Library, which is a beautiful, super like futuristic, really interesting library, which maybe if you're like a librarian purist and you want something really cozy, it's not gonna have that vibe, but it does have an escalator right in the library, which, you know, most libraries cannot say that that is true of them. And here's my little pro tip. I'm gonna try and give you guys as many of these little pro tips for each of these neighborhoods as possible, which is a hidden gem called Dear Dahlia. It's located a little bit of a walk from the mall, but it's definitely in the Gangnam area. And this is actually a cosmetic store, but the main thing you need to go here for is the afternoon tea. Make sure you schedule it. It might be a little tricky. You might need to use like Naver, which is like one of the Korean like messaging apps. You can use it to book stuff. But this afternoon tea is absolutely delicious. They have it on the second floor, and it's definitely a way to treat yourself and live like a fancy, luxurious life while you're in Gangnam. You know, really gotta fit the role here if you're catching my drift. But it's delicious. Pro tip. And finally, there is K-Star Road, which I didn't actually visit myself, but I know a lot of people are really into K-pop in that part of like modern Korean culture. So if that interests you, maybe it's a little bit gimmicky, but you can see these little bears with like different names or like bands inscribed onto them, and it could be a cultural experience that you might really enjoy. When I travel nowadays, one of the most important things is staying connected to the internet, and I used to do this by using a physical SIM card, you know, one of those tiny little chips that you would have on your phone. You can get a new one when you go to a new country, but they're really small and easy to lose. You need to bring your passport when you buy one from a local person. Sometimes you need to communicate in the local language, and you want to do your own research to make sure you're not getting ripped off and all of these things. Or you can just use data roaming, but that can cost a lot of money very quickly, so you can avoid all of this, luckily, by using Sim Local, which provides eSIMs or electronic SIMs. Now, Sim Local allows you to, in just a few easy steps, download the app, select the country you want to visit, select the amount of data or the amount of days you want to use your eSIM for, and it's just as simple as that. So you can travel stress-free to over 144 countries, be able to use maps and Google Translate to communicate and get around, or just send some messages and check your phone, which, you know, on those long train rides or bus rides, which I know I've done plenty times. And the best thing is about SimLocal is that you can cancel it and get a full refund before your trip, or if you change your mind. SimLocal also has a 5-star rating on Google, TripAdvisor, and Trustpilot, so rest assured, SimLocal is the right company for you. Just click the link in the description box down below and use discount code Wellman for 10% off your purchase, and it really helps out the channel too. Back to the video. So those are 3 pretty popular neighborhoods. The next one is actually one that's definitely more low-key, especially for travelers, which is Seongsu-dong, or Seongsu. Seongsu is actually known as the Brooklyn of Seoul, because I think it's more of a creative, hipster, kind of chill, laid-back area, which I definitely thought when I visited it. So if you're into those kind of neighborhoods, you should definitely consider checking this one out. It's a great place to spend like a morning and then maybe a little bit of like an early afternoon. So let's start off by going to some cafes or drinking some coffee at a cute cafe or like a bakery. That kind of like cutesy kind of morning start of a city itinerary. The place I would recommend is Sunny Bread Bakery, but I believe they moved to another neighborhood, which I'll actually talk about later. So I really just recommend following your nose or following your eyes. There's plenty of options for you to choose from, and go in a bakery that looks really cute and the vibe resonates with you, or maybe that the prices aren't obscene. That might be another way to make the decision a little bit easier for you. And just start your day with a nice cup of coffee. Cafes in Seoul are just so like cool and vibey. I love it. And after that, the main attraction here in Seongsu is going to be Seoul Forest Park. This is an absolutely beautiful forest park located in Seoul, as the name kind of implies, but there's lots of areas to walk around, many different exhibits. There's even a deer enclosure, which is really cool to see, these cute little deer just hanging out outside. There is like a pedestrian bridge that you can visit as well and check out, and lots of gardens and beautiful things and sculptures on display. So this is like one of my favorite gardens in all of Seoul. There's some I'm actually not going to be able to talk about because they don't fit into these neighborhoods for today, so make sure just check out my coming videos to see more of that. But that's it for Seongsu. Let's move on to our next neighborhood, which is Hongdae/Yeonnam. Now these are both in the Mapo-gu, or Mapo-gu district, so I kind of put them together even though they're two separate distinct neighborhoods. Now Hongdae, you might have heard of, it's very famous, one of the most popular neighborhoods in all of Seoul, and it's named after Hongik University, which is like the university in the area. So it's really popular with younger crowds, it's a little bit more energetic, it can be chilled out too. It's really popular for like street fashion, because of like the university kind of vibe, you know, and things like that. And Yeonnam, which is like northwest of the Hongdae Center, this is more of like an artistic, kind of creative little network of alleys that I'll talk about a little bit more here in a second. So the first thing we should do is Yeonggui Line Forest Park. This is right in the entrance to the Yeonnam neighborhood, and it runs sideways because it used to be an actual train line that is discontinued, and it's a really cool area to do some people watching. There's restaurants and cafes that line it up and down. You might see some like street performers or like buskers, which is really cool as well, and it's a great place to get like a different kind of park experience here in Seoul. And my little pro tip here, guys, I'm keeping them coming, is a restaurant right near this forest park. It's called Plant Gangnam. Now, Plant is actually a chain of vegan and vegetarian restaurants. So if you're interested in that and you're a vegan and vegetarian, fear not, you can eat some delicious food in Seoul, although it might be a little tricky sometimes depending on the neighborhood. And it has really good quality of international foods. So if you're craving some like international foods in Seoul, it's a great place to eat some clean but healthy and delicious foods that are really tasty too. So pro tip, let's continue. And my ultimate recommendation for Gangnam is to check out the Gangnam back area alleys. This isn't what it's called on the map. This is the best way I can describe it. This is like the true heart of Gangnam, which has those network of little alleys with some murals, some amazing like international restaurants and Korean restaurants too. Beautiful cafes, some that are like even night cafes, which have a totally different vibe. Don't really experience things like this in the West, to be honest. So it's a really cool, unique area that I wish I spent a little bit more time exploring. So make sure you go cafe hopping or restaurant hopping in this cool, fun, artistic, creative area in Gangnam. So now let's move right into Hongdae. We're gonna check out the Kakao Friends flagship store. Now, if you don't know Kakao Friends, these are like little emoticons that are from the messaging app Kakao, which is really popular to use in Korea, well, South Korea specifically. But anyway, this is a cutesy little store with some cool merchandise. It's 4 floors. It even has like a cafe and a restaurant, and it's fun to walk around and check out. Or if you want to buy some like plushies or stuffed animals, or you're into Kakao, you'll definitely enjoy this place. But moving on into the center, the heart of Hongdae, we're going to go to Hongdae Shopping Street. Similar to all the other neighborhoods, this is the main pedestrian street in Hongdae. It's a great place to do shopping. You can see lots of clothes being lined up on the street, so you can just like look at something and without the pressure of someone trying to sell it to you, and then go into the store. The clothes here are a lot cheaper than some of the other neighborhoods in Seoul, and it's really energetic at night too. You can see lots of street performers, you can see like dancers, you can see people like going from restaurants to bars and from bars to clubs and all that sort of thing. Which is going to bring us to our next thing, which is experiencing nightlife. Hongdae is like the nightlife capital in Seoul. This in another neighborhood, which we'll talk about more later, of course. You know, gotta keep teasing you guys. But some of my recommendations for not just cool nightlife, but unique nightlife here in Hongdae is going to be number 1, La Luz. This is actually like an arcade sort of bar, and it's not arcades for kids, it's arcades for adults. You have a mixture of different kinds of games, even including like ping pong or pool, or some like fighting games, driving games, fun little like player versus player games, and the games are pretty affordable to play, and the drinks are pretty affordable as well. It's a really cool way to have a fun nightlife experience, especially if you're not into just like drinking at a really loud bar where you're yelling at each other. It's a fun way to start your night off here in Hongdae. And another cool place, which is definitely loud but really fun, is Joseon Dynasty. This is located just a tad bit off of the Hongdae shopping street, and it's beautifully decorated to have that Joseon Dynasty kind of like traditional vibe in the basement, and it still like kind of has neon colors, so it's really cool. It's a great place to start your night off as well, or maybe go here before the arcade or after the arcade or something like that. Definitely have to check it out. But finally, what you must do is do noraebang, which is the Korean word for karaoke or karaoke. And in Korea, it's typically done in private rooms where you can go by just yourself or with a small group of friends. And it's a fun way to sing to your heart's content without completely embarrassing yourself in front of strangers, which I know I really appreciate. And there are many places to do this in Hongdae. I don't have one particular recommendation, but just look around or use maps and you'll find something that will suit your fancy, or however that saying goes. So let's move on to another neighborhood, kind of, which is Samcheong, or what I just kind of want to group as North Jongno. Because if you remember correctly, Jongno is the district, because districts are bigger than neighborhoods. Districts can include many different neighborhoods or a bigger area without some notable areas, potentially. And Jongno includes Insadong, which I think has enough that I can kind of like categorize it as a separate entity, and it's south of this main road that divides North Jongno and Samcheong and Insadong. So Samcheong is actually famous for this Hanok village area, which I'll tell you more about later, and North Jongno has 2 really important palaces. So let's just jump right into those. The overall vibe of this neighborhood in Area 2 is very traditional. It's less like creative and cutesy than maybe Insadong is, but it has truly that historical feel that will be a really unique experience and has some of the most iconic and famous popular tourist sites and attractions in the entire city of Seoul, right in this North Jongno neighborhood. So the first place you must visit is Gyeongbokgung. This is the most important or notable palace in all of Seoul, maybe in all of South Korea. And it is beautiful. There's lots for you to walk around and explore, including like main halls, a variety of temple gates. You can see guards here. You can go to the back and see like some different kind of like pagoda-esque structures or ponds. And some other like little living manors. So really cool area, definitely to check it out. It's popular for good reason. Now number 2 is actually an experience that I really recommend you do in this neighborhood of Seoul in particular, which is to rent hanbok. Now hanbok is like traditional Korean clothing. It's for girls and guys. You can choose your own color scheme or design to a certain extent with hats or whatever may have you. And it's really not that expensive to do. You can rent it for like 2 or 4 hours, or 2 or 4. And I recommend going to Hanbok Queen. That's my pro tip for you. The prices are really good and it's pretty much located right near Gyeongbokgung Palace, so it's really convenient as well. And my other pro tip is going to be you need to visit Maji. This is located really close to Gyeongbokgung as well, and it serves traditional Korean food, more so kind of like temple food. And it's really delicious. They serve it to you as a set. Well, it's really delicious, but a couple of the foods give me PTSD. I'm not gonna lie. I love Korean food generally, but it definitely was a little bit out of my comfort zone for like a spicy, cold noodle soup. So anyway, check that out if you're interested. Pro tip, really fun, unique experience here in North Jongno. Next is going to be, of course, the Bukchon Hanok Village. This is the main Hanok village, I think, in all of Seoul, and it is really cool. It's an actual neighborhood still today, so you want to be quiet while exploring. You don't want to be obnoxious. It's pretty hilly, so keep that in mind too. It can tire you out maybe to walk around a little bit, but on the other hand, it has great views of like the local or the nearby mountain ranges, because Seoul is like a mountainous city, so you can see mountains, you can see some of the palaces around you, and there's even like cafes and restaurants and really good photo spots for you to capture the beauty here. I'm sure it can get really popular sometimes, so keep that in mind when visiting, but I think it really is a magical, cool area, especially if you rent your hanbok and you walk around it. You'll have some amazing pictures, I promise. And finally is one more palace here, which is a bit more east. It's really close to the Ikcheon Hanok village we talked about back in Insadong actually. And this is going to be Cheongdeokgung Palace. Now I think this is arguably even more beautiful or interesting or like varied than Gyeongbokgung Palace, because here it has some main hall, but it has more like different areas, more different quarters, and it actually even has a secret garden in the back that you can explore as well, which is a little bit more chilled out than some areas in Gyeongbokgung. So definitely need to check this one out too, especially if you're interested in the traditional like feel and cultural and history of Seoul. This neighborhood, this area in general, will be your favorite, I promise. Now let's move on to our final neighborhood for the video, neighborhood number 7, which is Itaewon / Haebyeongchon. Now these are two neighborhoods I grouped together similar to like Hongdae and Gangnam, because these two are in one district called the Yeongsan district. It's actually south of the Namsan mountain. So if you remember Myeong-dong before, Myeong-dong's north, then we have the mountain south of Myeong-dong, and then south of the mountain you have Itaewon and Yeongsan, just to give you an idea of the relative geography here in Seoul. So both of these neighborhoods are actually really popular with expats, and they have more of like a foreign / international feel, but it's not like Little America or like Little something like that. You know, it's infused with Korean culture, so it has a distinct, unique feel, which makes many people want to check it out, and many people want to meet foreigners or talk to foreigners during the nightlife, so keep that in mind. This could be a really cool neighborhood for you if you're interested in that. So let's start off with Yeongsan Haebyeongchon Village, which is the main area in Haebyeongchon. I'm having a really hard time saying this one, guys. I'm not gonna lie, my Korean's garbage. But this is the main area. It's not like a pedestrian street, but it has many restaurants and bars, some international foods, and it's really hilly, so keep that in mind. But it's also creative and a good way maybe to meet people here at night. So definitely check this out. But my pro tip for this neighborhood, everybody, is if it's still open, it says right now it's temporarily closed, but I really think you should check it out, is going to be Monk's Deli. This is probably my favorite restaurant in all of Seoul, if it does open up again. And it has absolutely ridiculously amazing food. Some of the best food I've had in my entire life. And I've been to not as many countries as some people, but like 12 countries, 16 countries. So anyway, it really takes the cake, you know, and it's really freaking good. So visit it if it's open. But actually, do you remember that Sunny Bread place I was talking about in Seongsu-dong? I think it relocated here, so at least what Google tells me. So check it out if you can. The one I visited before was a beautiful little cafe and bakery with a nice vibe and aesthetic and good coffee and a really good place that you should check out if it's here in Haebyeongchon indeed. Next, we're going more into Itaewon to visit the Liam Museum of Art. Now this is a really cool art museum that has lots of traditional stuff. We can see traditional Korean galleries, some ceramics, lots of historical things as well from different dynasties, and it has a modern exhibit as well. And the permanent exhibits are actually free to enter. So if you're like me and you love free things to do in a city, you need to check out this museum. There are some other exhibits you could visit if you're interested in as well, but they cost a little bit of money. So keep that in mind, but it's a great museum, love it, it's really fun, and a great way to learn and see some pretty art if you're into that sort of thing. And finally, this is the main hub of Itaewon, which is like the World Food and Culture Street. Somehow, I did not actually visit this myself, everybody, and I do need to say, the only time I was planning on visiting this neighborhood, it's really tragic to talk about, was going to be for Halloween 2022, which, if you guys know, there was a terrible incident that happened here, and many people were crushed to death because it was overpacked and overly busy during the holiday celebration, which I wanted to visit because I was missing home and I thought it'd be a fun way to celebrate Halloween in Korea. So rest in peace, everybody, and like my heart really still goes out to people that are suffering from this today. I know less people go here in Korea today because it's still so fresh on their minds. Sorry, I'm getting depressed and really sad talking about it, which this is supposed to be a fun video, everybody, but I just wanted to give that disclaimer that I've never been here. I think it's still definitely worth checking it out to pay your respects to the tragedy that happened here, but there is lots of international food here and cool areas for you to check out. It's going to be like the main hub and heart here, so good for nightlife as well, from my research and what I've heard from others that have been in Seoul a lot longer than me. But finally, one more pro tip. Pan Onesta. This is a bakery and cafe that's located just a little bit south of Itaewon Station, and here they have delicious baked goods, of course, but one of my all-time favorite things, especially on a warm day, which is bingsu, which is Korean shaved ice. This isn't like a snow cone if you're American. This is like, seriously, like snow if it was an amazing delicious dessert, because it like melts on your tongue like instantly. It's not as icy and hard and crunchy as like a snow cone or something like that. Really delicious, and the portions are massive, so definitely need to have it here at Pan Onesta. Pro tip. So that's all for my ultimate neighborhood guide in Seoul, but of course I did not cover every neighborhood. I'm sure there's some that I missed out on because I was only in Seoul for 1 month. Now Seoul's a place that you could spend many months in and have a great time because there's many different neighborhoods that have their own unique vibes, and also lots of cool things you can do outside of these neighborhoods that might be in their own areas that might not perfectly like line up to a neighborhood that I'll make videos on in the future. So make sure to check those out and subscribe to see more Seoul travel content, recommendations, things to do, just to have the ultimate time here in Seoul. So what do you think, everybody? Which of these neighborhoods sounds like it'd be your favorite? Are there some other things that I'm missing out on, or some other neighborhoods that you want to ask some questions about? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.